I thank my colleague, Mr. Maryland, for his incredible leadership and for the opportunity to continue to lead the Special Order Hour for the Progressive Caucus here every week. And every week we do try to pick a different topic. For those of you in the audience, we pick a different topic, and this evening that topic is the ties to Russia of this administration. Yesterday, Sean Spicer told veteran White House correspondent April Ryan that she was, quote, going to have to take no for an answer, end quote, when she asked him about the president's collusion with Russia. Well, Mr. Spicer, we are here to tell you that we will not just take no for an answer. We're not going to sit back and believe everything that is coming out from the White House when there is mounting evidence that President Trump's campaign may have colluded with Russia to tip the election in his favor. And for those of you that saw the Judiciary Committee today, we had a resolution of inquiry from Representatives Hakeem Jeffries and Ted Lieu about this very issue in relation to the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, and his ties to Russia. Let's not forget that President Trump's former national security advisor and campaign advisor only lasted a record-setting 24 days in the role because he blatantly lied about meeting with Russia's ambassador Sergei Kislyak during the campaign. So what other ties to Russia have been confirmed? I thought there are so many of these ties that I thought it might be helpful to have a diagram and to really show exactly what the connections have been between top Trump officials during the campaign who are now the same officials that are serving in the White House and are the president's close and personal confidants. The diagram is even necessary, tells us something. So let's start at the top with the president himself. President Trump has a long history with Russia. His first trip to Moscow was actually 30 years ago. He went to explore potential real estate opportunities, and his relationship with the country has clearly grown. In the late 1990s, Trump started banking with Deutsche Bank, which has since been investigated for funneling Russian money offshore. Soon after that, he linked up with a Russian company called the Bayrock Group, which has ties to the mafia and to criminal interests in Russia. Their partnership was integral to helping to expand the Trump organization to new heights, with properties springing up across the country. His ties to Russia only grew deeper, and in the late 2000s, several Russian businessmen bought properties from the Trump organization, netting them hundreds of millions of dollars in profit. Now let's fast forward to 2016, when then-candidate Trump was building his team. He brought on Carter Page, who is now under investigation for communicating with Russian officials. And in fact, it was the Trump campaign's former manager, Corey Lewandowski, who gave Carter Page the green light to visit Moscow just last July. And a couple of weeks later, Mr. Page met with Sergei Kislyak, but he said that he will not reveal the details of that conversation to the public. And this is a very important, consistent fact that we see. Our resolution of inquiry today that we debated in the Judiciary Committee was about the release of information so that we understand what is going on. Without any accusations, what we're trying to say is, let us investigate what these ties are, what the conversations were, and let us determine in an independent, bipartisan way, let us determine that there has not been collusion, and let us make sure that there is no foreign government that is affecting our democracy. So various members of Trump's team met with Russian officials during the campaign, but Attorney General Jeff Sessions didn't just meet with officials, he lied about meeting with officials during his confirmation hearing. And again, the top prosecutor in the United States of America lied under oath during a confirmation hearing. This cannot be ignored. Once again, we're not saying don't have conversations, but don't lie about them. don't make us wonder what happened during those conversations. How do we trust the Attorney General of the United States of America to fairly and impartially preside if he's shown that he is willing to make false statements just to get the job? He is not the only high-level Trump official who has been blatantly dishonest with the American people. Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor who was put in place by President Trump, resigned due to the shady backdoor dealings that put him in the pocket of Russian officials. He was paid $45,000 to attend a state-sponsored gala dinner and sit at the table of Vladimir Putin. These connections are more than just mere coincidence. And in addition to Flynn, Page, and Sessions, there are several others who have been implicated. Trump's former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, former campaign advisor, Roger Stone, his personal lawyer, all of these folks are up here. His personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, are all under investigation for their connections to Russia. And now President Trump's son-in-law, who has become one of his top advisors, is under investigation as well for his actions during the campaign. Not only did Jared Kushner meet with Ambassador Kislyak, he met with the Russian bankers as well. And the White House has claimed that the meetings were diplomatic, but it's deeply troubling that one of the bankers that he met with was Sergei Gorkov. And I want to be clear about who this person is. He is a graduate of the Russian Academy of the Federal Security Service, which is an academy that is tasked with training individuals to become members of Russia's security and intelligence fortress. And he's now the chairman of the Nashekanam Bank, and he was appointed by Putin himself. This is not a mom-and-pop bank. This is a state-owned corporation that has been under sanctions by the United States for the past 3 years. And that's a big deal. Jared Kushner, whose family is worth nearly $2 billion, has real estate interests around the world, and he sat down allegedly under the auspices of his role with the president to chat with this owner of the bank. And a spokesperson for the Kremlin has alleged that this meeting was, quote, absolutely the bank's prerogative, and that the Russian government was unaware of the meeting. We need more information to know what happened in that meeting, because otherwise, where there's smoke, we think there's fire. So we need to have the information so that we can actually determine what is happening with these connections. Because if somebody from the Trump campaign and the Trump administration is meeting with Russian officials and they don't want to tell us why or what's discussed, then we have to start wondering whether the conversations are in the interest of the American people or in the interest of the Russian government. And we also have Rex Tillerson, President Trump's Secretary of State, who has strong business ties to Russia and was awarded the Order of Friendship from Vladimir Putin in 2013. This is the highest honor that Russia can bestow on non-citizens. And just 2 years prior, Tillerson had struck a massive $500 billion oil deal with the Russian. Now, we could go on and on with this, but what's important for the American people to understand is that we have expectations that the President of the United States and that his cabinet are working in the interests of the American people. We have expectations that if a deal is struck, it is not for the benefit of some other country or for the personal benefit of any individual in office, but that it is for the public's benefit. And if a deal is struck that takes benefit away from the public in order to give it to a foreign government or to an individual personal interest of our government, then that is an enormous disservice to our democracy. And of course, there are constitutional ramifications for all of this. This administration has tried to tell us that the conversations between Trump's advisors and high-level Russian businessmen and officials were about diplomacy. And yet, this shroud of secrecy that continues every time we try to get information, every time we try to make sure that there is an independent, bipartisan investigation, that somehow the shroud of secrecy continues. And it begs the question, if this is really about advocating for the interests of the American people and not the Russian government or the pocketbooks of cabinet members, then why the secrecy? What is there to hide? let us have the information. And there's been plenty of requests to do that in a classified way in case there is some information that is classified. But why are the president's campaign advisors and officials denying under oath that they've communicated with Russia, only then to be forced to walk back their statements or recuse themselves, as Jeff Sessions do, or to even resign? Foreign policy is key to American interests, but these backroom conversations and subsequent lies are doing nothing to make the American people feel confident in an administration that is supposed to represent them. It is clear that there is a strong tie here that was only strengthened during the campaign. But let's be very clear about what the connective tissue in all of this, in all of these lines that go back and forth, what is the connective tissue that connects all of this? It's money. How did we get to this point? Of course, we remember the hacking of the election that occurred last year, is in the process of being investigated, even though the chairman of the Intelligence Committee feels that his first duty is to the president and not to the members of the committee. But last year, President Trump defended Vladimir Putin by placing the blame on the Democratic National Committee to distract the American people. And then in July, he outright urged Russia to hack Hillary Clinton's emails, saying, quote, "Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing." In December, a CIA investigation assessment concluded that Russia was trying to help then-candidate Trump win the election. Why? Because they know that they have an ally in President Trump. They have someone who's willing to do business with them, even if it may not be in the best interests of the American people. They know that they're well connected at every level of his administration. And let's be clear about who we're talking about with Mr. Putin. This is a dictator, a human rights abuser, somebody who Republicans and Democrats alike said, we cannot be associated with him. You've heard of the Manchurian candidate. In the most recent election, we may have ended up with the Kremlin candidate, and the script truly writes itself. We were hoping to have a chance to get to the bottom of this, as I said. We were hoping to have a chance to get to the bottom of this in a hearing in the House Intelligence Committee, but we never got the chance. Last Tuesday, Representative Nunes went to the secret briefing in a National Security Council facility, and what he found apparently wasn't good for the president, because he ran over there to tell the president, instead of doing his duty and reporting the information to the House Intelligence Committee, he went straight to the White House with his findings. And he is supposed to be chairing an investigation into what happened, not being the runner for information to the president. After briefing President Trump, Representative Nunes canceled the hearing, denying Americans the opportunity to hear from former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates. And Ranking Member Jim Himes was right when he said that the Monday hearing last week was, I'm sure, not to the White House's liking. And he went on to say, this is a direct quote, "Since Monday, I'm sorry to say that the Chairman Nunes has ceased to be the chairman of an investigative committee and has been running interference for the Trump White House." This is absolutely unacceptable. The fact that we are questioning whether or not several members of the president's cabinet, not just one, not even just two, but several members of the president's cabinet, including the president himself, are guilty of collusion with a foreign government is a downright outrage. And in my home district, the 7th District of Washington State, I've been receiving numerous calls, hundreds of calls from constituents since day one, saying, how can this be happening in this democracy? How is this possible in America? How do we make sure that our government is representing us and not a foreign entity? Why is it that somebody would lie about whether or not they had a conversation with the Russian government if there was nothing to hide? People are losing faith in the United States government. It is a crisis of democracy, when people can't trust that their government is actually trying to get to the bottom of what's going on and actually representing the interests of the American people. The White House may have a friend in Representative Nunes, but I want the American people to know that they have a friend in us. We won't back down on our demands. Representative Nunes should recuse himself from this investigation. There's no way we can expect a full and impartial investigation after what's just occurred. And this should not be a partisan issue. Every member of Congress, Republican or Democrat, should be demanding to know the facts. We're not making judgments. We want to know the facts. If there are facts that we don't know that say no, there were very legitimate conversations, there was no collusion, then we're done. Why tie up the airwaves with this? So tonight, as we think about where we are in this debate, and we think about the fact that for 3 months this administration has been under the shadow of secrecy, under the shadow of mistrust from the American people, there's a very easy way to clear all of the names of the people that are on this list, including the President of the United States, and that is to ensure that we have an independent investigation, to ensure that Representative Nunes recuses himself and stays as the chair of the Intelligence Committee, given what's happened, and to ensure that at the end of the day we remember that the government of the United States of America, the President of the United States of America, the Congress of the United States of America, our one duty is to represent the people of the United States of America. And with that, Mr. Raskin, I yield back, and I thank you so much for your leadership and for yielding me time.